Merdeka, PNB 118, project in Kuala Lumpur. Massive project. Give us an update, what's going on there?
Well, right now, we've just come out of the ground. It started by digging a 100-metre diameter coffer dam, which has got a lot of steel and a lot of concrete in it, and that's taken quite a while. But now, the mega columns are about 2 stories above ground level, so it's now well on its way. A lot of time's always taken in the ground, and it's great when you get beyond that and you start to see the building taking shape.
Mm-hmm. And once this is complete, remind us what this is going to do for Kuala Lumpur, in your view.
Oh, I think it's going to work at a number of levels. Obviously, it's a very huge tower, tallest in Malaysia when it's finished. And I think it works as a triumvirate with KLCC, the Twin Towers of the Petronas Twin Towers, and the KL Tower. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, will extend the so-called Golden Triangle. And that means that the centre of KL will become larger, and this will definitely activate this section of KL, Chinatown, reinvigorate. So I think it's going to have quite an impact at that level, at the city scale level. Mm-hmm. Locally, I think it's really important as a marker to the most, one of the most important heritage sites in KL, Merdeka Stadium, where in 1957 independence was declared.
Right. So
this huge tower provides a garden frontage to that stadium, great ambience, and a civic marker in a sense from a great distance.
And Merdeka, I think, means independence, doesn't it?
Freedom.
Freedom,
that's correct.
Okay,
yes.
My mistake. And then in your home city of Melbourne, you've got Melbourne Quarter, which is a residential project with some
yes.
public space.
Yes.
Tell me about that project and how the public space is integrated.
Well, Melbourne Quarter is 5 towers, 2 of them commercial and 3 of them residential, which we're doing. And the 3 residential towers, in a sense, surround a piece of land that's been turned into a civic garden. Melbourne's very much a garden city. It loves its garden squares. The city historically was designed, planned with gardens, very much part of the psyche of Melbourne. So introducing a garden in this part of the city where there aren't really any gardens is a great contribution to the city. And it's a place where the workers in the commercial can come down and enjoy, a place where the people living in the residential can come down and mingle. So it's a blending of the private sector and the public city sector. I think it's going to be a really, really important addition, civic addition to Melbourne.
What were your models, or what was your idea for that conceptually at the start? Because I hear towers in the park, it sounds like an old idea, but with a new twist.
Look, just planning towers obviously starts with the requirements of each tower in terms of the accommodation they need to provide. That kind of sizes them into the stages of development. But then it's also about maximising the view corridors and keeping as much space between them. So what better way to do that than surround a park? It's a mini version of, Central Park, New York.
Right.
Very mini, but it's the same thing, edging the park with built form, giving safety by overlooking, giving amenity not just to the city but also to the residents. This all goes together to make a great place.
Mm-hmm. Australia's cities are growing very rapidly, getting more crowded, more dense. Kuala Lumpur, certainly very dense, very crowded. Mm-hmm. Do you see the role of the tall building or the tower changing as cities increasingly get dense? Is there something that we can do to promote tall buildings as more than just, monolithic towers? Will they be integrated more as vertical villages? We like to talk about this idea a lot, but it seems like now is the time when the rubber needs to meet the road for a lot of these cities that are getting so crowded. So how do you approach that problem as an architect?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. The buildings which were once containers for working in Melbourne, Sydney, not so much for living, but now very much so.
Right.
So these buildings which have a profound impact on the city, especially when they're imposed into the city that already exists, a lot of which is heritage, they need to make a contribution back to the city. They need to do it in terms of sustainability, so reducing their power consumption, being sustainable, using their walls to create power, reducing water usage, etc., etc. And I think that comes with the territory going into the future. But equally important is the need for those buildings to engage with the city. And it can do it within the building, but certainly at the ground level, the public realm. And I think that these buildings have to be enablers of social and cultural opportunity, relevance and richness for the city and the people that live and work in it.
Yeah, one of the themes of this conference this year is connected cities. What does that mean to you?
Well, if you take the people out of a city, you've got a lot of stones and cold emptiness. The city is about the people. So connectedness is, for me, at any rate, ensuring that people in the city feel connected. They feel the sense of place, the sense of belonging, and this can be done in a number of ways. I think it goes beyond just saying, oh, this building needs to be connected to that building by infrastructure. It's more about the placemaking and the social consequences of what these new tall buildings have and what they can do. I think in Melbourne, Eureka Tower is a good example of that. Tall tower, tallest floor plate in Australia, almost 300 metres tall, but almost 600 apartments, and it's on South Bank. South Bank used to be a warehouse area. Then people realised, under a very great planning minister, Evan Walker, that this side of the river was very sunny. And so that edge of the river became occupied with hotels, restaurants, and became quite popular. But it was skin deep. Behind, nothing really happened. Eureka Tower was a catalyst for change in the area because it was, in a sense, one block back from the river. And so it provided the tower, it provided mixed uses, showrooms, restaurant, cafe, it provided a public space, it provided a sky deck. So the public space, a garden, is a place for gathering, taking people to the sky deck, and it also introduced an arcade link to the further south, to all the residents beyond. So it became an engaging piece, a piece that enabled people to walk in a very nice environment from further back to the river edge, and it encouraged more development, more people living in the area. In Sydney, I've been involved in Barangaroo as a design advisor, and I feel great pride in what's happened there, particularly in the public realm. So from a working wharf, which became deserted, we now have the first stage. The three towers that exist there are on podia, which provide all sorts of pedestrian opportunities. The edge of the water has been enhanced. People come there, they love it. You can actually connect through the buildings, which is something that the architects and we supported very much, that they wanted it. So yes, you've got the private realms of the tower, but the public can also walk through the buildings under shelter in inclement weather.
Right.
So it is a buzzing place. It's been a huge success as a social gathering, meeting, recreational place.
I was there last night, and there is a kind of a commercial arcade. There's also a big public art display with a bunch of long plastic banners, I guess, that were waving in the wind of different colors. It was incredibly windy yesterday, and the public art was whipping so fast. People were stopping to take photos of it because it looked like it was about to come apart. It didn't, but it was a nice little outdoor space for people to have a chance interaction.
Yeah, well, you're on the edge of the city, you're on the waterfront, so there are times when you can take the full force of the wind, and that's why enabling the public to use the internal lobbies of the buildings, which in fact I did last night because I was getting blown off my feet.
Right.
So I used the internal lobbies to get to where we wanted to go.
Are there any technological innovations that are really piquing your interest right now that might enable some new innovation in tall building design?
My architect partner, Katsalidis, has been working for 10 years on modular construction. It started off as completed modules, which are finished apartments lifted into place, and over time it's morphed into a componentry, service-loaded walls, formwork that is made in a factory out of steel with the reinforcing in it and lifted into place as permanent formwork, because when they're filled with concrete they become the shear walls and there's no unloading of formwork. The idea of having jigs on a construction site where componentry can come in, tubular volumes can be created, lifted into place with the glass walling attached, so speed of erection, and different craneage systems that could be computerised that work like 3D printers to lift and place these things. I think all of that's very, very exciting. It's to reduce site activity, it's to increase safety, it's to get more accuracy, it's for faster building construction times, and it's just a more sustainable way of building.